interesting is, you know, in the wake of the FBI raid of Mar-a-Lago, there were a lot of people on the right who jumped out and were immediately like, defund the FBI. And then as more details came out and, you know, some sort of somewhat cooler heads prevailed, started to be a lot of discomfort with the defund the FBI rhetoric, because it obviously echoes very directly the defund the police rhetoric, which they have been attacking and, you know, using to beat Democrats over the head with. So the latest person to kind of back away from the defund the FBI rhetoric is Mike Pence. Let's go ahead and put this up on the screen. So he says calls to defund the FBI are just as wrong as calls to defund the police, but Attorney General Garland and the DOJ must give a full accounting to the American people as to why the unprecedented search of the personal residence of President Trump was taken, and he must do so now. So Pence trying to kind of have it both ways here, signal that he's a little different, he's a little more serious-minded, et cetera, but still ultimately backing up the Trump talking points, as we've brought you before. Like every single one of the theoretical competitors to Trump immediately bent the knee and was on his talking points like that night. They were right on top of it. The other thing that bears mentioning here with regards to Pence, he made these comments at a speech in New Hampshire, which of course, you know, anytime anyone travels to New Hampshire, that is eyebrow raising in terms of presidential ambitions. And the other thing that he said that made news is he floated the idea that he might be open to testifying in front of the January 6th committee. Some of the initial headlines there were a little bit more definitive when you read or listen to the entire context of his comments. It's very clear he's sort of like, well, maybe I would, but not a definitive answer as to whether he would do that or not.
Yeah, and it's very interesting. And you know, Pence was already being Tucker apparently went on Laura Ingraham's show last night. He said, quote, Pence should fire anyone who is telling him to go to New Hampshire and run for president and give dumb speeches about the FBI when he has no idea what he's talking about. So drawing the ire, I think, of some of the MAGA people in the party for doing this. I also just think it reveals with Pence, it's like, what are you doing here, man? Like, what is the point of this?
Yeah.
Like, first of all, the idea that you have any credibility with any of the people who would be wanting to defunding the FBI as a result of the raid is preposterous. Like, all the people who have followed Pence are, you know, people who are not MAGA, quote unquote, probably much more traditional conservatives. But second, it's like he's still trying to square the circle, and still try to be competitive in a GOP primary. It's like, what are you doing here? That's what I don't.
I think there were people who looked at how Glenn Youngkin was able to win for governor, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday with regards to Liz Cheney, who looked at that model and were like, oh, this is how to do it, because he didn't go all the way in. He kind of kept his foot in both, did enough to like appease the MAGA base and not have them totally come after him, like saying some things. We need election reform, you know. Wink, wink, nod, nod, but not go all the way in. But Glenn Youngkin was not on a ballot and up directly against Donald Trump. So it's just a totally different situation. And also, as we talked about yesterday, they had to basically rig that primary and give it to him.
Number one, he was given ranked choice voting at a primary, at the convention.
At a convention.
Not at
they didn't have a regular primary. Virginia has weird rules about the party is able to pick from this array of options of how they want to run the primary, and say they did it in the way that was the most elite-centric to essentially protect him from having to go all the way in on Stop the Steal and whatever other Trump nonsense was going on at the time. So Glenn Youngkin is not the model for how you're going to defeat Trump in a head-to-head race. You know, I think that Pence is actually a really good example of this case that we both have been making, that the Republican Party is all about where you stand on Trump. Pence was with Trump every single step of the way without fail for his entire 4 years of his presidency. Never could you get an inch of space. Every time, remember when they would do those weird meetings and Trump would like make everybody around the table say something nice about him? Like Pence was the most disgusting bootlicker, complete fealty to him. And then the minute that he does one thing that is, you know, goes against Trump's wishes, that's it. He's dead to them, and they're running around, you know, saying, hang Mike Pence. So he is the perfect example of how there is no middle ground on this. Not in the Republican Party, not now. You're either all the way in with him or you are all the way out and you are Liz Cheney. And he's still trying to kind of have a foot in both camps. good luck. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's just not going to work.
That's my entire monologue today. It's completely delusional. I really don't understand where these people seem to think that they can have any like credibility overall with the MAGA base. But listen, I mean, they'll find out the hard. I guess it'll be fun to cover. I'll enjoy watching him.
You think he's going to actually run in the primary against
I don't know if he's that delusional. It's possible. I mean, he thinks he's sent here like on a mission from God.
Yeah.
So like if anybody was going to do it, it'd probably be him. So yeah, I don't know.
True.
Truly.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.